Hello everyone, welcome back to Craft Corner. We're doing baking again today. It's my turn and we're making ginger cakes. It'll be a nice thing for Christmas. It's kind of a wintry flavour is ginger. I have a nice plate of them here. Hopefully they'll look something like this when you're done. And they're very tasty and they smell nice too.
Very
if you had
delicious.
smell-o-vision, it would be great. So, wash your hands first, I've already done that, and then you're going to need to put your oven on to preheat at 170 degrees. And then we're going to get your tin ready. Now, I mean, technically you don't have to cover your tin, you can just grease it all over if that's what you prefer, but I like to use the baking paper because it cuts down on the washing up. So this tin is approximately 12.5 inches, which is 32 centimetres, by 9.5 inches, which is 24 centimetres. You can use this same recipe for one if your tin's slightly bigger, that's fine, or even just slightly smaller isn't a problem. But if it's much smaller, then you will need to halve all of the things that I do. The recipe was originally half of all of this, but my tin was too big and it came out really small. So I doubled everything and did a different one, so now they're nice and big. Right, so first of all, you need a bowl. I only have a glass bowl that's the right size, but Mum always says to me that a plastic one's better because we're going to use boiling water in a little while and it doesn't take the heat away as much. So you need 8 ounces of butter. I've used block butter, but margarine works just as well. But you want to chop it a bit because it will help to melt quicker. And then you're going to take your golden syrup. I have to measure out this one. I have a nice bottle of golden syrup. They do come in tins, but the bottles are so much easier to squeeze, and actually it worked out cheaper. We're going to do 6 ounces of golden syrup. Squeeze. It's very satisfying.
Yes, it looks it.
It's much easier as well. I hate using the tins for this because you have to watch it pour and then you have to scrape it off quickly and dip it back. It's very messy when you have to put the lid back on and use it next time. So at least with the bottles, okay, we're at 5 ounces, we're getting there. At least with the bottles it's a bit less messy and easier to stop pouring. Come on, 7/8. I'm going to get it exactly. I don't like it, that's it, 6. Perfect.
When I used to use that in the shop, I used to do the catering size things and use a big litre plastic bottle.
Oh.
And I used to cut it off with the knife against the top. And the children used to think it was really lovely to see the golden syrup cut off.
That's funny. Right, so on my jug, let me get the right side. That side. I had to mark it because my jug is so old and scratched that you can't see the numbers. But we're going for half a pint of boiling water, which is roughly 300 ml. I went around. It's pretty much the same. So Mum's going to pause the video for a moment while I go and boil the kettle. Otherwise you'll be hanging around for ages. On again. Okay, so I've got my half pint of boiled water into my butter. I had to put my mat down because I don't want to burn my wooden table or make it stick to the varnish. I'm going to give it a little bit of a chop, but then mostly I'm just going to leave it to melt and come back to it in a moment.
Yes, if you have a plastic basin, it more or less melts altogether, but sometimes with a...
It's a bit too cold
yes,
with the glass.
You have to
I'm going to leave that
put it in the microwave to heat it a bit.
Slide that up out of the way, and while that's melting, sorry Mum, to put it right underneath.
That's quite all right.
I'll leave that there because I don't need it.
I'll get those bits off the edge so that they melt.
I actually forgot to get myself a wooden spoon, but I'll need to get it in a moment anyway. I don't need it just yet. So while that's melting, we're going to get our flour, self-raising flour. And I'm going to do 1 pound and 2 ounces of flour. I didn't work any of these out in grams, I'm afraid, but I can tell you after I've measured it how much because my scale switches between the two. Once I've done it, I can tell you. So 1 pound 2, which is very specific, 509 grams. About 500 grams. Okay, and I'm also going to get my sugar. You can use, most obviously bakers usually use caster sugar, but I very rarely actually bother to get caster sugar because it's much more expensive a lot of the time for a smaller thing, and I don't think it makes a difference to the taste. I can't remember how much I'm doing, 8 ounces. So I just use normal granulated sugar. But if you're a purist, you can use caster sugar. 8 ounces. Get there? Come on. A big lump dropped in. Did you see that? Come on. There. Usually it does almost too much. But I actually stopped right on it that time. Okay, I'm going to get our measuring spoons. And we've got some bicarbonate of soda. Not baking powder, as Mum kept accidentally telling me. Bicarbonate of soda. 2 teaspoons.
They're level spoons, aren't they?
Yeah, level spoons. That's why I give it a good shake. Back on so I don't knock it over. And then we're going to go for the ground ginger. I did 4 teaspoons of this because it's doubled, but if you want to make it slightly less, then I reckon 3 would be fine, but I'm going to do 4 just because I love ginger so much. I forgot to say that this is a completely eggless recipe, so if you have a friend who's allergic to egg, this is a great cake for them, provided they like ginger. But you could probably change the flavouring, technically, to something else, but ginger's the best. You can tell anyone I said that. Come on. So roughly level. That was 4, wasn't it? I didn't miscount that.
No, that was 4.
Okay. Just going to grab my wooden spoon that I forgot to get. This time I know exactly where it is, so I won't be gone ages like I was with the rolling pin. So I'm going to stir it together. Just give it a good mix around. Okay. Looks a big spool to me. I'm going to have a look at my...
It looks quite good.
It's not bad, is it? I'll give it a stir. There's still a few little bits of butter.
I think it will do this time.
I think it might melt itself as I mix. So if it's not quite melted, there's bigger bits than these, because these are tiny bits that should be fine, then you can just put it in the microwave. I usually do 30 seconds at a time and then stir, because you don't want it to be too hot when it goes into the flour and stuff, really, because you don't want it to boil the flour, because it's more difficult when it's lumpy. Whoops, I just flicked that. Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
So I think that should be okay.
That looks like it's good.
Yes. I will need that in a moment. So I'm just going to pour it straight in and then mix, because I find it easier. I don't know if I'm supposed to do it that way. Nobody's ever told me.
Yes, you do it that way.
It's difficult to stir and pour from such a big bowl.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that because I want to put it there and I don't want that to drip. Gently stir bits, because otherwise it will slop everywhere because of the liquid. But you can see it kind of fizzes a bit, which is what the bicarb does, and helps it to mix and give it air instead of the egg, obviously, because you want it to rise without egg. So that's kind of like the bicarb's job.
It's such a good recipe because it's easy if you do things wrong. I even put it in the oven one time and the oven wasn't on, or was on very, very low. And after half an hour, I'd looked at it and thought, oh, this is not rising at all. I turned the oven up and it went perfectly. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
So it's a good recipe. It helps for us that don't do things quite right. And
I'm going to keep mixing. I'll get rid of some of these floury lumps. I found you have to be careful because some of the things that look like lumps are actually air bubbles, which is meant to be there. So, but you can tell the difference mostly, and these are lumps still. So it's pretty smooth. That's not bad.
Yes, that looks good.
That's a bubble. Those are bubbles. You can see little bubbles popping, which is what it's supposed to do.
Yes.
Okay. Now the next two things I'm going to do are optional. I like to add some sultanas. Oops, let me put the scales there as well. It just adds a bit of extra body and extra flavour to the cake, but you don't have to if you don't like them. It's not integral to the recipe. You can make that. You can put it in the oven as it is now if you want to. So I'm going to do 4 ounces of sultanas. Stuck in the bottom of the thing. Roughly, you can do slightly less, you can do slightly more if you want it to be a bit more, technically. I don't think it will hurt too much as long as you don't have ridiculous amounts, like the same amount of raisins as flour. That would be a bit crazy. But slightly more or less is entirely up to you. I'll say you don't have to put any in at all if you don't like sultanas. So just give it a little stir around. Show that it's mixed up well. That's fine, you don't need to stir too much, just enough to mix it in. Get it in. Pour. Nice one because it's quite a liquid recipe. Oops. Scrape out the extra bits. I usually use I've got a spatula here. I usually use to scrape around the edges, but I didn't bring it out today. I just brought the wooden spoon. Oops, I think I just flicked that on the carpet.
Oh dear.
Shh, don't tell Mum.
If we had dogs, it would be all right, but we have cats and
They
they're
don't
not
care.
interested in picking up bits.
No. There we go. Do for that. Right, and the other thing that's optional, I have some crystallised ginger. Well, glacé ginger, but it's basically a similar thing. It's all in bits. It's very sticky, but I like to add a little sprinkling of ginger on the top. But you don't have to. But it just adds a little something extra gingery. It's quite strong. But great if you're a proper ginger fan.
Yes.
Try and spread it out a bit. Oops. It's not coming off my fingers, that's the problem. It's very sticky. I mean, I could have used a spoon, but no other time have I used a spoon. I don't mind getting it on my fingers. And wash them afterwards. Okay. And we're going to put that in the oven. I say your oven should be at 170 degrees, and this is going to cook for 45 minutes on the middle shelf, I'd say. Mine's on the middle shelf. Don't know if that's correct. Let me go and take it away.
You have gone.
Okay, I'm coming back. I don't want you to sit there too long. There we go. So in 45 minutes you should have some delicious ginger cake. It will look something like this. You can chop it up however you like. Some of my pieces are huge. I will be cutting them in half again because they're very thick.
Very tasty.
But,
They've
so
been under my nose all the time, and
bits
they've
of ginger
been
on the
lovely.
top and the sultanas.
Smell of ginger.
So it should brown nicely on the top like that, but it's still soft on the bottom. So it comes off a little bit on there, but that's what makes it so delicious. So hopefully yours will work out just as tasty and have a little bit of a nice wintry flavour coming up to Christmas. Enjoy baking, and I look forward to seeing you for our next craft. Bye!
Bye-bye.